Real estate agents, if you've been struggling to see results on social media, this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to walk through exactly how to reframe your thinking to understand the biggest benefits for real estate agents that social media has, and then of course tactics for how to leverage those benefits to get the best kinds of results so that you're getting more leads and they're higher quality and they're converting at a higher rate. So let's jump into it. And if you don't know me, my name's Jarvis. I run Jarvis Media Consolidated. We've got some great, results down here for real estate clients across the country. We work with over 200 plus agents, and that is where a lot of this information is coming from working directly with agents like you and seeing what is working and what doesn't work so that you can get better results. So let's talk very first about the different ways to think about social media. So most people think about social media as a way to go viral. And yes, that is something that social media helps you do, but it's not the only thing that social media helps you do, and it's definitely not the thing that most real estate agents should be trying to focus on. Going viral is a deliberate move that takes a lot of time and effort as a content creator. And the problem with that is that you're competing against people who are just making content left and right for their job, 60 plus hours a week, right? And we are agents. We are using social media, or we should be trying to use social media to grow our actual real estate agency or real estate agent business. And so that is a very different tactic. So we shouldn't be looking at what people are doing to go viral to necessarily get the best results there, to necessarily get those results. So instead, we need to understand that social media is really great for lead generation, but also one thing that people really sleep on is for trust building. This is where you can become more familiarized, or folks, I should say, can become more familiarized with your brand. This is where you can build up the know, like, and trust factor that actually goes into and is necessary for someone to want to work with you. So when somebody chooses a real estate agent, a lot of times they view agents as a commodity, which shouldn't be the case, but unfortunately it is. They view any agent as somebody who can pretty much get them the same result, right? But when somebody has an actual knowledge of working with you and they understand your process and they understand you and your brand and they want to work with you, it becomes a lot easier to sell them on working with you versus just being a stranger that's just trying to barrage them with content all the time or barrage them with marketing, whether it's traditional or social media, just saying, I'm the top producer, work with me. That doesn't mean anything to most folks, right? So most folks couldn't even tell you what top producing agent means in their market. So stop using that kind of industry lingo to try and market yourself when in reality, nobody cares. Really what people care about is they want to have a level of trust and they want to work with you, right? They want to work with you, and that only happens if they know you. They can't trust you and like you if they don't know you, and they won't know you if you're making content that doesn't help to accomplish that goal. So first and foremost, yes, you need to be visible. Obviously, that's where posting content, that's where if you're just running paid ads is important. But what's really also important there is once you get past just the exposure level, then you need to start to find ways to build trust. And that is where social media has an unfair advantage over other marketing channels. Because here's the thing. If you constantly show up with video, which is of course by far the best way to be on social media right now, if you constantly show up with video that explains who you are, your expertise, and helps people understand what it's like to work with you and who you are as a person, and by that I don't mean like you shouting your accolades at them. I mean, instead, you showing up and just being yourself and building a relationship with that person. That is where you can ultimately build that level of trust that is going to make it so much easier when they're ready to buy or sell a home. Now, here's the really funny thing. Have you ever seen, and I'm sure most agents watching this video have run into this before, where you're trying to work with somebody and then maybe you've talked to them a little bit and they say, you know what, actually I've decided to just hire my cousin, or I've decided to hire my brother or my aunt or my uncle or whatever. And you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, I didn't even know this person had a real estate license. Why weren't you working with them immediately? Why were we even talking about this kind of thing? This doesn't really make sense. Well, the reason it doesn't make sense is because you didn't know that that person had a license because either the client, the potential lead, didn't know that they had a license until then, or they didn't want to work with them because they thought, well, you know what, I don't know if that person takes it seriously. I'd rather work with a professional. But here's the thing. Real estate clients end up working with a family member or a friend or whatever very often because, one, they see it as a commodity. They think they're going to get the same result anywhere else. And two, they trust them. And that's the most important part, is that they trust them at the end of the day. If they know them, they know they have their best interest in mind, and that is the decision they need to make. So when they're looking at you versus their cousin or friend or whatever, you might have greater experience, but they have greater trust. And at the end of the day, trust will always win when they want to work with somebody, because also they like that person. They would like to give back to that person who's a friend of theirs or whatever. There's benefit for them to work with that person over working with you. The last thing you want to do is say, that's the dumbest move, you're working against your interests. Assuming you know the client's interests better than they do is a huge mistake in marketing. They by far know themselves better than you ever will, so they know their interests better than you ever will. That's why I always get mad in politics when people are like, oh, you're voting against your interests. It's like, dude, like, I'm not a child. Like, I know what my interests are. I know what I care about. That's what I'm voting for. And that's how people are voting with their wallets or with their, choosing of which agent to actually have represent them. And so they are working with that person because they provide more value. So the question is not, oh, why are all these people just dumb and working with people who are less experienced than me? The question is, how can I replicate what's making them want to buy with their friend or cousin or whatever, and then also have the experience so that it's a no-brainer to work with me? And that is where you can do that with content, because if you're making a consistent amount of content and you're creating that content that actually provides value. And value, by the way, I always like to define this because people just throw the word out there blindly and hope that people understand or we're on the same page when nobody usually is. Value is content that is highly likely to make someone's life better. So if that's entertainment, you're entertaining somebody, which temporarily makes their life better. If you're providing any kind of information or guidance on buying, social media or buying real estate properties or whatever that might be, or selling their property, then that is going to likely make their life better, but only if you do it the right way. That's where shouting information at them isn't helpful. Doing things that's going to make their life more beneficial, that is more helpful. So that's information, but also next steps, also wisdom, also knowledge about what their issues are that they might not even realize they have. It's the unknown unknowns they don't even know that they're not thinking about. That can be issues that you can help them understand. All of that kind of thing is really helpful to make valuable content. If somebody watches your video and they say, wow, I learned all this stuff that I didn't know. Here's this other thing I didn't even ever think about that is so important that I know before I buy or sell a home. Wow, that's so helpful. That is where you are providing value if it's helpful. If it's just, here are the interest rates now, that's not helpful, because they could just Google search that much faster than having your video interrupt, when they're trying to see what their friends are doing on Facebook or Instagram or wherever. So that is where you can actually consistently show up with value, and that will ultimately help you build the level of trust that you can mirror their friend or their cousin or whatever, and then on top of that have better experience, being that this is your full-time job, you've probably been in it longer, you probably have better reviews, all of that kind of stuff, and ultimately that makes more sense. If they're looking at it and they trust you as much as they trust their friend or family member or whatever, and you have more experience, there's no reason for them to not work with you. Right? And that goes for other agents too. If they see 1,000 other agents in there, which by the way, every market has like 1,000+ agents, right? Then you need to differentiate yourself. And if they trust you, that is the best differentiation method possible. And so that is where social media can be helpful, because it allows you the opportunity to constantly show up in people's feeds and provide value. And if you do that over and over and over again, you might not be viral, because to be valuable for buyers or sellers in your market, one, much smaller audience than millions and millions of people, and two, well, depending on your market, but then two, if you're going niche on this content and you're explaining these things that's going to make their life more valuable, inherently less people are interested in that, because you're only talking to people who are potential buyers or sellers and who need that information and are going to get value from that now. So you're going to get less views from that, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, if you had 100 views, but every single one of those was if somebody who was like, wow, this is amazing, I really want to work with this agent, that's way better than getting 1 million views from a bunch of 14 to 18-year-olds who are not going to buy a house anytime soon in your market. So we'd much rather get less views of a more qualified variety, especially in real estate, where it only takes a couple of transactions to dramatically increase what our business looks like. That is where we we need to be focusing our attention on quality over quantity of views. And that only happens if we're being niche and very specific and directed towards our audience with our messaging and the value that we provide. So when we do that, what's nice is that we're going to get in front of the people who are actually getting value out of that. And there are ways to tweak that and all that stuff. But this is where your lead generation can be helpful as well. Because if you're building an organic audience where they're just constantly seeing your content, there's a lot of ways to naturally lead them into becoming an agent. A great thing are comment campaigns. I have a video on how to do this, which does leverage some ads, but you can also build in what's called a ManyChat integration. ManyChat is a company. It can integrate into your social media so that you can post something and say, hey, by the way, if you want like a downloadable or you want like to get a free meeting where I'll show you how to do this yourself, just say the word buy or say the word real estate, and then I'm gonna send you something in your DMs, right? That is an automatic process that can be built out in the back end through ManyChat or other features that do that for you. By the way, if you need a system that's gonna help you stay on top of your social media better and also work as a great CRM that you can build out that we've seen really great results with, there's a link down to our white labeled go high level system. We call it Jarvis Social Manager. Helps you build out all of those things and also replaces ManyChat in an integration like process where basically you can get people's information and have those campaigns where you can run it fully organically without having to pay for ads. So it's a great tool. Other platforms have that. If you have that somewhere else, great. But we really love that. Also comes with a social media omnibox, which basically means you can see the comments from all different campaigns or all different channels all in one spot on an app on your phone, and you can get notifications of that. So like, let's say somebody responds to your post and sends you a DM, you can see that immediately, so you can have speed to lead and get to that lead very quickly and not respond to them 2 weeks later when they've already found another solution and they're already working with another real estate agent. Happens all the time, huge issue. So check that out if you're interested. But you want to have those systems built out so that yes, you can get leads. Or if you're running ads, obviously you should be getting leads from that. So you'll have leads coming in the pipeline there, which can go into your funnel or your CRM or whatever you're currently using. If you're using some other thing, if you're not, then check out that link. But if not, don't worry. If you already are using that, don't worry, I should say. But that is where also that nurture sequence, what we call about the trust building process, it's often called the shadow funnel. Because let's say you have a traditional like email sending or direct mail sending or billboard or paid ads or some other kind of funnel going on, you're getting leads in your process and then you're nurturing those in your funnel, or you should be. Well, the shadow funnel can work parallel to that. So like, let's say somebody becomes a lead, right? They're in your system and they are getting your emails or whatever, and you're giving them your offer and all that kind of stuff, and you're working that lead, right? You're calling them, you're texting them, you're emailing them, all that good stuff. Well, then also in the background, you have your content. And what's really cool is you can directly tie that to your audience, which is super cool, through custom audiences, where basically you can say, hey, like everybody who comes in here, put them into a custom audience, and then I want to target them with like a super, super cheap, like $5 a day ad budget. That's a great way to do it. But what you can also do on top of that is just organically, your content is going to get in front of folks who are interested in what you're talking about. And so if they clicked on, especially from a paid ad campaign, they're highly likely to see your organic content. And so what you're doing is you're building all that trust while they're already a lead. And what's happening is that you're actually getting a higher likelihood of converting that lead because they have more time with you. Because what so many agents do wrong is they try to sell to people who don't know them. And it's very difficult to sell somebody on a service which is so important and one of the biggest, if not the biggest financial decision of their life, and they don't even feel like they know you. It's like, dude, stop soliciting me. Like, that is where you get cold calling numbers where, like, you know, less than 1% of people actually engage or want to work with you, even though they're a lead, because they don't really have a chance to know you. You've built no trust with them. So why would they want to move forward with you? And that's a common misconception that happens, is people think because they're a lead that they know everything about them and then they want to work with them and they know all their accolades and all this stuff, and couldn't be farther from the truth. So usually when somebody becomes a lead, that's at the very beginning of their customer journey with you, right? And so that is where the shadow funnel on the other side here can do all of that heavy lifting, can build all of that trust. And if you're doing that consistently, it can help people know about you and build up like and trust so that they see, man, this guy is everywhere. He's got so many great pieces of information. He constantly keeps showing up, and and then I realized like, oh, I'm actually been getting emails from him for like a year now. I didn't even know that. That's so interesting. Like, wow, I'm really like, here's all these cool things that I need to know that he's providing, and I'm already like a lead here. Like, I'm gonna reach out to him because he seems like a really expert agent who, is already right there conveniently in my inbox. So the shadow funnel is so heavily powerful. And what's so cool is that even if you aren't getting any leads from your organic social media, that shadow funnel is still helping you build know, like, and trust. It's keeping new leads interested in you and showing your expertise in a really natural way. It's actually serendipitous. I wish there was a better word for this, but like serendipitous is just like positive in like an unforeseen way. So like if I randomly like, saw $100 on the ground right when I needed to go deposit $100 somewhere, like that would be serendipitous, right? Very convenient in a positive way, and beneficial. And so when you show up on social media with advice that helps them with something that they're already struggling with or thinking about, that is serendipitous. That is very conveniently showing up to help somebody at a time where they need it most, which, by the way, this is where the algorithms are really helping you, not hurting you, because they know when people are going to be interested in this kind of content. Then you can be there at the right time, the right place to help them in a natural way. And that is where it is just so much easier to convert people who already know, like, and trust you. And what you're ultimately doing is you're taking all of those, like, the way that most agents get their business, which is through referrals or repeat customers, and you're turning those people, those new leads, into basically like referrals, because what you're doing is you're getting a chance for them to get to know you and like you and trust you, so that when they are ready to buy or sell, they have the same level of trust as they would if their friend had recommended you. And that is where it's so powerful. And by the way, it's also great because if you help somebody, you help them buy or sell their home, a year later they keep seeing your content because it keeps showing up because you know this person and you're engaged and you're more like a friend now. Then now they're more likely to recommend you because you're more top of mind. And they're like, oh, you know what? Like, my friend John was just asking about like a real estate agent, or just thinking about, I should put him in contact with this agent. And that is where it's helping you to get referrals. It's helping you to nurture your audience. It's helping you to build trust with a new audience. And it's doing all these things in the background. And here's the thing though, a lot of times none of that is showing up as a direct ROI. You wouldn't be able to attribute that to the organic content unless you have some really advanced systems, which, by the way, there are a bunch of tools out there like Hyros and other things that can help you track that. But a lot of agents are not in a position where it makes sense for them to afford that. It's just helpful to know that your organic is helping you do that because it's getting in front of the people who care about that. And at very least, that's going to be your friends and family. And it keeps reminding them that you're an agent, that you're looking to do more stuff. And help more people, which can increase your referral rates, and it definitely helps increase your current leads' knowledge of you and their trust factor. So even if your organic content that you're putting out there consistently, even if it's not getting a lot of views, even if you don't see any direct leads coming in, you need to understand that this stuff is still giving you a competitive edge because it's letting all of your other leads be more informed, and it's allowing them to learn about you from a different way. And by the way, a lot of times what ends up happening when people have leads in their nurture sequences and they're just sending them emails, a lot of agents do not have their email set up, so they're getting terrible deliverability. And a lot of agents don't even know that they're sending out emails to a list of 1,000 people, and like 20 people are actually getting it to show up in their actual inbox, and the rest it's going to spam. And that is crushing, because what's ending up happening is that you think you're working your lead list, but you're really not at all. And that is where, too, if you're having organic content on the other side, that's more likely that if they do see your ad or your email, they're going to actually open it, which means you're more likely to actually stay out of their spam because you're actually interacting with their content on multiple channels. And that is where you can start to build a system that is helping itself on multiple sides of the equation, to build trust and to stay engaged and nurture that lead, so that ultimately you're getting more referrals, you're getting higher close rates, you're getting higher open rates on your email, and ultimately you're converting more people because you actually have trust built in your funnel. You're not just barraging them with a bunch of content about why interest rates are so good. So guys, I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.